The goal of this podcast is to help you break in and thrive in advertising. And we do that every single week by sharing the stories and advice of those rocking it on the other side. And today, we have an episode recorded in person with a guest, coworker, and friend of mine, Dave Reidy. Dave Reidy is the managing director and chief creative officer at Havas Life Chicago. And he's also an author. So Dave comes on, we record this in person at Havas Chicago. He comes on, shares his unique journey into the ad industry with a focus on healthcare advertising, something we've neglected to talk about this show. And I'm so glad Dave is here to break it down for us. He discusses the challenges and rewards of breaking into advertising, the importance of creativity and human purpose in healthcare advertising, and the specialized nature of advertising in the healthcare sector due to regulatory constraints. It's good stuff. This conversation also covers the collaborative and creative culture at Havas. Wink, wink. Love it there. The significance of maintaining passion and preventing jadedness in one's career, and advice for those looking to enter healthcare side of things in advertising. He's also a genius when it comes to managing successful projects, particularly in rare diseases, and the value of creativity under constraints. All this is amazing stuff. I really suggest you guys who are looking to break into this field, check out healthcare advertising. Listen to this episode a couple times. If you like Dave, you like this stuff he's talking about, you like Havas Life here in Chicago, I will help you connect with him. Just leave the podcast a 5-star review on Spotify and or Apple. Leave a little written review. Reach out to me. Reach out to Dave directly. He explains how to do that. And our goal is to get you connected with these people. Have these conversations with them so you can actually break in. So you listen to the episodes and then you reach out. That's how we do this. That's how it's designed. Now, on with the show. This is the Breaking and Entering Advertising Podcast, and as usual, I'm your accomplice, Geno Schellenberger. Kick it, Mikey. All right. Dave Reidy, welcome to the Breaking and Entering Advertising Podcast. How the heck are you doing today, sir?
Good, Geno. Thanks so much for having me.
We are live here in the Havas Chicago office in our studio. I love having people in person. I've only done probably 5 episodes in person.
Yeah.
Of 200 plus. So
this is great in our Zoom and Teams world. It's good to be face to face.
Yeah. So you're doing well today?
Yes. Having a good day. Team's here. We're cranking on things, and all's well.
So what do we want to talk about, Dave?
Well, I mean, I would love to, I could talk a little bit about just kind of how I got into advertising. And, we'll see how useful that is for people as an example. But, I love helping people find a way into this industry because, I certainly got help.
It's not easy.
Getting in. No, it's not. Yeah, I think it can seem closed in a number of different ways, which we can talk about some of the barriers too that I think I'm only now more aware of in the last few years.
Heck yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's just so great when you can, maybe make a referral and it turns out to be a great fit, and then the agency's happy. More importantly, the person's happy.
Yeah, it's a win-win.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a very satisfying thing to be able to connect people that way.
Heck yeah. Let's talk about your title here at Havas Health and You in Chicago. You are the managing director and chief creative officer. Is that correct?
That's right. Yes, it was an opportunity I got a couple of years ago to come and fill both those roles here at Havas Life Chicago. Those are two different roles. They are. I mean, at a place our agency size, they can be managed by one person. And what I really liked about it is Havas is a place where there are people who hold a creative title and a president role, like Myron Nussbaum does, right? And then within Havas Health and You, I can think of a number of folks, Chantal Innes among them up in Toronto, who really have a creative background but are leading agencies. And not every agency is comfortable with that. Sometimes some agencies that really you've got to be coming from the account side or maybe the strategy side in order to hold an agency leadership position. But I think as a part of Havas's commitment to creativity as something that really matters and drives business for our clients, I think they believe it's something that can drive business for our agency too. So I was really excited to get a chance to practice both of these crafts, agency leadership and creative leadership here at Havas.
There we go. And you've been here for how long?
I started in January of 2022, so 2 years and a quarter.
Got it. So tell me about Havas Health and You. What is this agency? What do you guys specialize in? What do you specialize?
Yeah, so Havas Health and You is like the world's largest health network. It's a big group that has been recently made bigger and stronger with its unification with Havas Creative under Donna Murphy's leadership.
Heck yeah.
And, it's really been, as a network, I have found, I come from an independently held background.
We can open up that can of worms and talk about the difference.
I'd love to.
I love that conversation.
Yeah. I mean, because I have a lot of affection for, like both of my first two jobs in advertising, one I held for 4.5 and another I held for 15.5 years, were both in independently held agencies. And, it really teaches you to do a lot of bootstrapping. Like, you're like, if we don't know how to do it, we got to figure it out. Let's get to Google or now ChatGPT and try and figure out how to do this. What I love about Havas Health and You, one of the things is like, I am one Teams message or phone call away from a stone cold expert in whatever it is I need to know about. There's just so many people who know every dimension of healthcare and healthcare advertising within Havas Health and You that really it's just like the access to expertise that I have here is even better than I anticipated, and I had high expectations coming.
Got it. You might be one of the first health professionals, agency professionals we've had on this show. So we have to set the stage here and explain this world. Yeah. So, and how Havas Health and You fits into that world as well. So for the listeners that have no clue, or they might want to entertain the health agency world, tell us about it. What brought you in?
Yeah. So, I mean, I've worked in both kind of agencies. My first creative agency job, my clients were the Chicago Blackhawks, the Houston Astros, Lettuce Entertainment, Restaurant Group, among others. And so, I really started in sports and entertainment advertising and really, really enjoyed that world. There was also a design firm called Kudal Partners. They are now the makers of Field Notes, the world's best notebooks.
You worked there?
I did, yeah, for 4.5 years with Jim Kudal and team. A lot of the people I worked with are now there leading the Field Notes effort.
I would love to talk with one of them too.
Yeah, I should connect you to them. They'd be really interesting folks to talk to because they really made the transition from a client-based business to a product-based business. And they did so powered by their design and creativity.
Kind of like Liquid Death. Like a creative product.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a lot like that. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if Jim Kudal knows folks from Liquid Death or something like that. Yeah. It's just been great. And
so you started off, you have you said you worked with Blackhawks, the Astros, you worked at the design firm.
Yep. And then I went away to graduate school and I did 2 years of my master's of fine art in creative writing. And then when I came back to Chicago to an agency that was known as Closer Look at the time. And it was, it had some healthcare, but not entirely.
Okay.
But as we were there, we continued to niche tighter and tighter in a way that made the agency stronger and stronger competitively. And it was all of a sudden, it was like, okay, we're going to do healthcare, which was like health insurance and pharma, and biopharma and biotech. Okay, well, what if it were not health insurance so much and it was just biopharma and biotech? And that's when things really, really took off for us. So I kind of came in a way where it was, a little bit through the back door. I didn't like choose health proactively as like the way I was going. I just happened to be at a place where I was seeing the value. But of course,
it's kind of a nice intro.
It is. Yeah, it is. And when you stay in a place, like I always tell folks, even if you have a job for a long time, it's important to re-choose it like every 6 months. Like you have an option, right? Just because you're at a place doesn't mean you have to stay.
Right.
So it's important to choose it. And I consistently for years re-chose that job and re-chose health. And what really drew me to it was a couple of things. One, just how purpose-filled it is. You know, at Havas Health and human purpose is a real driver. And it's one of the things that attracted me to this network. You really have a chance to help to connect gaps that exist in our healthcare system, and help connect patients to the treatment that is best for them, either through their healthcare professional or directly to those patients themselves. That means a lot to me. The other thing that it offers is a chance to do creative under very, very tight constraints. And I find that a reliably renewable and exciting challenge.
Yeah.
I really like to do creativity and constraints.
What are those? I mean, I hear this all the time, that there are these constraints. And can you paint a picture? Like, what are some of the restrictions? Like, what are the common like things you have to watch out for?
Of course.
Just high level. I think it's really eye opening.
Of course.
Why do you like it?
Yeah, I can tell you. So, I mean, there's just a quick outline of what some of the constraints are, and there are many, and I won't try to do them all in this podcast. But
this is a glimpse.
Exactly, sure. So they're essentially regulatory constraints. The FDA regulates a lot of healthcare and certainly pharmaceutical advertising because, and one of the reasons I don't mind that is because it's really, really important that someone do that. If the profit motive was all that was allowing us, all that was, powering what we were saying, and, then, we could have issues, right? So this natural tension between, what the company wants to do, having brought this product to market, and all of the company's own great intentions and trying to help people. And then also just this regulatory body that really is trying to reduce risk for the consumer. And for the patients in the world, is a good and productive tension, I think, because, it's really important. Just the message I take from that is what we say about these things matters. And so much so that, there's an entire organization helping to regulate it. So
maybe regular advertising should have a stronger
right. I mean, like
regulation.
There are parts of advertising that really, can catch the eye of the FTC, right?
Yep.
The Federal Trade Commission. And so there's certain regulation of what we do in regular advertising too.
Yeah.
That's the other way to look at it.
Yeah.
It's generally looser though.
For sure.
Right. So, so I think that taking those constraints as an indication, among other things, that what we say here matters, you can take that as a positive. And then in terms of why I like it, part of the reason I like it is because not everyone can do it. I think it's part of what makes the people who choose healthcare advertising for themselves somewhat special, right? I think everyone can be special in every walk of life, and in every client is a worthy one for the most part, right? But I think that some people, those constraints don't feel like a challenge; they feel like a straitjacket, and just sort of like, look, you can't be as creative as you want to be in this world. I need more of a blue sky, more of a blank page. But, I think for some of us, it's like, okay, actually delivering on creativity that, touches the heart and moves the mind in healthcare advertising is a real challenge. And one of the ways we know is that, doesn't always get there. The work does not always get there. And I think some of the work that we see out there in the world, in our industry is not great work, right? And so the challenge of doing great work in that space is real, and it helps you feel, again, like sort of somewhat special. You're sort of like, if we're the ones who can pull this off in this case, and in a way that does some good, maybe even beyond the product for people who have this condition, then it's the kind of thing that can really help you get out of bed in the morning and get to work ready to go.
Is there a case study or project that you did recently that comes to mind that you can talk about that you were really proud of?
Yeah, I mean, I will talk about, I'll talk about it in as specifically as I can, but I think one of the areas where this is most keenly felt by the people who do it is in diseases that are rare, like rare diseases, right? And one of the reasons that you can really feel this purpose so deeply is because oftentimes people with rare diseases have been totally underserved. There haven't been many products that meet their needs.
Right.
Oftentimes they've gone years without getting the diagnosis of what they actually have because no one knows to look for the condition that they have, or there aren't that many people trained in seeing it. So when you have a chance to do either in a branded way or in an unbranded way, something that really connects with the community of people who has rare disease, who has a given rare disease, it's really, really meaningful.
Right. You're shining a light to them. It's like offering hope, and they probably have been searching for so long for something out there.
Yeah.
Now you're delivering a solution, but a potential solution to them.
Yes. And it's important that you go to them though, especially if you are, if the client is new to that community, if they have not, if they have no relationship with the community, if it's their first treatment for this condition, you really have to go to them with humility, because the people who have been dealing with this and the people who've been advocating for the people who have these conditions are the real experts, and we can't just come in and say like, hey, here we are with our product. Aren't you glad to see us? Because the answer may be not so much.
How do you approach that?
It's really important, even pre-launch, to build a relationship with them by delivering experiences, creative and like kind of platform level experiences that help these groups feel seen as they see themselves, that elevates them and their voices, as opposed to elevating the brand as the hero.
Wow.
So you got to do a little bit of that, and then you earn the right to bring your brand to them as something that can make a difference.
That pre-launch that's super interesting, like building that trust, being meaningful to them before saying you have the one size fit all solution potentially, right?
Yeah.
You got to show up beforehand.
It is. It's really important. So that's the kind of thing that keeps me going in healthcare advertising, because there are a lot of people who could be working in other verticals, in other categories if they wanted to. And the very best folks are choosing health, often because they have a motivation that, can't be taught. Sometimes they maybe grew up with a condition that really put them in contact with the healthcare system early and really gave them an intrinsic motivation to keep working in this area. Sometimes they were a caregiver or the son or daughter of a person who had that experience. Sometimes they are really interested in science, and other times, as I said, they just love creative constraints. And they're like, okay, put me in the straitjacket, lock me in the case, drop me to the bottom of the river, and let's tell a story.
And I think a recurring theme that we've talked about is sometimes parameters actually open up creativity.
Yeah.
You want a tight brief, a clear direction to go to from the strategy. So I guess that kind of lines up.
It's the exact same principle.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And how long have you been in the health side of things here?
So, if you count my second job as the start, it has been about, it's coming up on 20 years.
Mm-hmm. And do you feel like it's one of these industries where the longer you are in it, you kind of learn some of the restrictions or some of the lingo?
Yes, certainly.
Or is
there's
it changing
a chance
all the time?
Oh, well, that's the thing about, first of all, just advertising in general, right? There's a fair amount of change that we're all dealing with right now, driven by AI and many other factors. But within healthcare advertising, for sure, I think a long time in it can go one of two ways. One way is like, okay, look, you've developed an expertise, you find it a renewable challenge, you're able to keep yourself fresh, you're able to look both inside of healthcare and crucially outside of healthcare for all the, not only the best practices, but also just sort of the best kind of creativity, and to really challenge yourself to make work that not just cuts through the clutter in a health context, but cuts through the clutter in a culture. If that's one way it can go, if you're in it for a long time and that expertise accrues to you as value, both its value delivered to your clients, value delivered to your colleagues. The other way it can go is, you can get a little jaded. It can be like, well, it feels like I've been doing the same thing for a long time. It feels like, there's nothing new under the sun here. Look, first of all, I guess it could happen in any sector. I've certainly met people from other parts of advertising who are experiencing that kind of cynicism or jadedness. But I think the best ways to prevent it are to kind of manage your own attitude. Like if you just sort of like, a lot of this is a choice. How do I choose to show up? I mean, are there reasons to be cynical? Like, okay, maybe, right? But I'm not choosing to show up that way. I'm choosing to show up in a way where I'm taking inspiration from my colleagues, inspiration from my clients and their brands, inspiration from the best of what I see out there, inspiration from partners here at Havas Creative and Havas Media in this village. And then trying to turn that inspiration into great work being done with great people, both our clients and our teams. And like, that's how I choose to show up. And I do find it a pretty good barrier against jadedness.
I'm curious. So if somebody wants to get into health, on advertising and in health combined here, like why should they consider Havas Health and you? Are there like, as opposed to other health agencies out there?
Yeah, great question. There are a lot of good answers to that question. I'll just hit on a couple.
That's fine.
One is, again, coming from an independently held background in terms of what kind of agencies I've been in. There's true collaboration here. The lines between our agencies, except where firewalls are concerned, are porous. People want to lean this direction and lean that direction to help one another. And they really want to, they really take some joy in meeting other people in the network, learning from them, and doing good work with them, be it on a pitch together or on a specific client project together, or maybe you're staffed to a brand and a team for a period of months or even years. But I think that's a really good reason. From what I understand, and again, I haven't been in many, but not every network is like Havas is, by all accounts, more collaborative than most. The second thing I would say to somebody who wants to get into healthcare advertising is Havas Health and You, and certainly Havas Life within Havas Health and You, is a place where creativity matters. We are firm believers that creative ideas drive business for our clients, drive business for their brands, delivers meaning to patients and healthcare professionals, and drives our business as an agency. And I think that emphasis on creative is, again, something you're not going to find everywhere. Some companies are going to lean sort of technology first, even as agencies. Others are going to make it maybe all about the great strategies for reach and frequency and engagement. But I think that, and certainly any great idea needs media to make it happen. But I think that, the core of the idea and our belief that creativity drives business for brands makes it a really exciting place to be in healthcare. Wow. Because that combination of human purpose and creativity, there's a lot of potential magic in there. And the only barrier to making it real is us and how well we can convince our clients that the idea is worth doing.
Love it. Tell me about like the entry level or the general structure of your agency. I mean, how is it different like than a traditional creative agency at all? I mean, do you have art directors, copywriters?
We do. We have both of those titles within. And I think it's like, as you know, all over our industry, and I'm sure as your listeners have experienced, like titles vary widely in terms of what are they, in terms of what they mean. Yeah. There are titles here at Havas Life that I hadn't encountered in other stops, but I understand what they mean, and I'm glad we have them. But yeah, I mean, we have within our agency, we have, like a full service set of functions. We have planning, we have account, we have project management, we have creative, we have customer experience, that, we work with our big CX group on, but we have some people who sit in our office and with us on our team. And more, right? So I think that's like, editorial certainly as well. And I'm trying not to leave anybody out. But I think that, those are a lot of functions that you're likely to find in a regular advertising agency. And so, people who are looking for a way into advertising but are considering health, if they were searching for roles, could probably use all the same words they were using to run their search. Feel free to look for copywriter. Right. Feel free to look for art director. You might even look for designer. But go for all that. If you're a planner, looking for strategist, planner, senior strategist, all those things, all that could work too. So the the basics of the terminology, even though the titles may differ, carry right over into the health context more often than not.
Got it. And then what specific advice would you have? Somebody is listening to this, they go, yes, I want to go into the health side of things. How can they kind of like break into that niche?
Yeah.
In addition to the fundamentals of general advertising.
Yes. So, I mean, there are, some of the basics apply, right? Like, if you know someone who can refer you, and all those sort of basics are all still there, right?
Yep.
But if you were just sort of trying to make
LinkedIn,
exactly
right,
all that, but if you were just trying to like make your case for coming into healthcare, like when I'm looking at resumes and cover letters, there's a couple of things I like to see. One is I'm looking for somebody who is really choosing advertising first and foremost. Like they're into it. Like they're like, this is for me. Right. And then, I'm looking for somebody who then is ready to say, okay, I like agency life, and here's why I want a healthcare agency. Do a little bit of storytelling. Tell me, by which I don't mean make it up, but deliver a capital T truth in with some narrative, right? Tell me, or tell the organization you're writing why you're choosing healthcare. Make it clear that you could, with your background, work somewhere else. You could work in consumer, and maybe you've even considered it. Maybe you've even done it. Why healthcare now? Because that sort of intrinsic motivation to work in healthcare, be it a personal story, you don't have to disclose all your medical information, but be it some sort of personal story that either you've experienced or you've been closely adjacent to, or if you think that really that's a place where your work can have the most meaning, that's the kind of thing that truly cannot be trained and cannot be taught. You bring it. It can be fostered, and a bad manager can kill it. But like it can,
good point.
It can be, but really, like, I'm looking for that, because if a person's choosing agency life and is choosing healthcare for the right reasons, and they have some demonstrable talent for whatever their level is supposed to be, we can work with that. Like, and what we can tell you, at Havas Life Chicago is you'll be paired with a manager who will help you find a way to, where your career aspirations overlap with what the agency and the clients need, and will help to make sure that you have goals that march you right toward those most promising points of development for you.
I like that.
Thank you.
No biology minors are needed, or
we should talk about that, because oftentimes, like, there are people who use that as part of the case they make, right? It could be like, hey, look, I studied biology and English literature in college. Like, I was in the science college and the liberal arts program as well. Like, you encounter folks like that, or people who just have a stone cold science background, like we have people with masters or PhDs.
And you did say you have subject matter experts, right?
Absolutely.
So there could be a little niche for those.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And like, to me though, like that's going to show up on the resume. What I want to know is like, what's the story of how you chose that?
Right.
Because that's probably related, maybe not, but could be related to the same reason why you're choosing healthcare advertising now. Because clearly, it can be an advantage in here if you're just sort of a little bit more familiar, if not even fluent, in the clinical data that is the basis of all of these products that any of us take as medicines being approved by the FDA. And that is actually the basis of the advertising that we do. We can't say anything that can't be backed up in those clinical trials.
Right.
Can't say it creatively, or we can't even just say it in a straightforward manner unless it's backed up there. So a science background can help you figure out, here's what's magic about this. Here's what's magic about this versus its competitors, perhaps. And by magic, I just mean like kind of creatively magic. It's hard science. It's not magic, Geno. Don't worry. We're not peddling magic out there. But like in terms of, what's really interesting or insightful about this, and then turn that into a creative platform. Like, that's what this is about, because any of the great creativity has to be rooted in something. Maybe you're a person with a science background who can help us figure out the strongest, most interesting platforms for the creativity we hope to build and drive. Yeah. So like, definitely those backgrounds are worthwhile. We'll see it on your resume, tell us the story of how that relates to why you want to get into healthcare advertising.
So, do you guys have interns, fellows this summer?
We do, actually. We have a fellow. Her name is Sana. She is...
Shout out.
Yeah, shout out to Sana. She's really great. Like, I mean, like, I feel like, Sana's a great example of what it means to lead from your seat, no matter where you are in an organizational chart. We all have moments where we need to lead. I don't care if your title is managing director or fellow, right? And Sana leads where, not only where we ask her to, but where she sees an opportunity to do so effectively.
That's good.
And yeah, she's really, really great that way. And I'm sure there are a lot of fellows across Havas Health and You and Havas Creative who are the same way. Every time I've ever met a fellow here, especially within Havas, I just think, boy, I hope we hire this person permanently.
Yep.
It's just like the caliber of the people and their commitment and interest and drive is another thing that keeps me from getting jaded.
You know what I didn't ask you?
What's that?
Is how come you decided to get the master's in fine arts?
Sure. I have been interested in making written art since I was about 19. I'd done, school newspaper in high school and stuff, and, certainly did a lot of writing in college for papers and things like that. But in terms of creative writing, I went to see an August Wilson play called Ma Rainey's Black Bottom at the Old Goodman Theater in the summer of 1997. And when I saw that play, I was so inspired by the idea that everyone comes from a culture and that we can tell our stories of the culture that we come from. And I was like, what are the stories that I should be telling from the culture that I come from? Which is sort of like an Irish-American milieu. And that got me writing. I started off writing screenplays. I also wrote stage plays. I wrote some short humor pieces and things like that as well. And eventually I turned to fiction because I thought there was going to be a shortcut somewhere. I was like, oh, well, there's a formula for writing a screenplay. So maybe I can get good at that quickly. Well, it turns out maybe some people can, but not me. I wasn't going to be able to get that. That was not going to be a shortcut for me. I was going to have to work as hard at that as anything else. So then I was like, okay, so what do I really want to do? And I was like, well, if I'm going to have to be bad to start in any of them, I choose writing fiction. I think it was the lion in the road for me and the form that was kind of the most exciting challenge. So I started writing fiction, and especially in the early 2000s, one of the things you did when you were writing fiction as a way to create time within a working life, because I was already working full time by then, writing in the mornings before work, getting up early to do it. I was like, okay, what about a master's in fine arts? So I found one program that would let me in. It was a great one. The University of Florida was a terrific MFA program and still is. And it's one of the country's oldest MFA programs. Met some really, really great fellow writers, really, really great, smart, talented faculty. And I ended up publishing a book of short stories 3 years after I graduated, and then a novel followed 6 years after that. So I have a couple of books of fiction out in the world.
Oh, what are they called?
I have a short story collection called Captive Audience, which is a collection of stories about performers of different kinds. And then a book called The Voiceover Artist, the novel, which is, among other things, about Chicago advertising and the art of voiceover. It's also a family novel about a family, a father, a deceased mother, and two brothers.
Got it. Where can people find those?
They are still out there in the world on Amazon. You can find them on your Kindle, and then they're available in print some places too. So I think they're both published by great independent publishers with great national distribution. Captive Audience was even translated into French, which was fun.
Not Spanish?
Not Spanish.
I see that you studied Spanish. Yeah.
Yes, I guess I just couldn't find a Spanish publisher interested enough in captive audience. But yes, I certainly did study Spanish and lucky enough to read Spanish literature and things. But so I really have, those books are still out there if anybody wants to find them. And
do you still write today? So
I do. Yeah, I do. So I wrote recently. The thing I wrote most recently was I wrote a short magazine piece for the alumni magazine of my undergrad, and it was they were looking for memories of concerts we saw on campus. So I got to write about a show I saw way back in the late 90s. That it was a triple bill of Atari Teenage Riot, The Roots, and Beck as the headliner. And The Roots and Beck were like in this real interesting state of becoming. And so were all of us in the audience. And the difference was like the Beck and The Roots were becoming legends, and we were just becoming whatever it is we were becoming.
Oh,
but like it was,
that.
Yeah, but it was really, really interesting. And again, a constraint. I had 250 words.
Boom.
So what can I do? What can I do in that creatively? And that was fun. Also, my wife, Tiffany Bedwell, is an actor, director, and producer. And I've been trying to write for her since I met her. In 2021, she finally gave me a chance. We worked on a short film together. We worked on the story together, and then I wrote the screenplay. Tiffany co-directed it. It's called Fitting Descriptions. It's a 10-minute film, and it's in its festival run right now. So that's exciting, and hopefully more festivals to come throughout 2024.
Dave, you are incredible. Your energy is unmatched when I see you in the office, and taking this time to get to know you has been just fantastic and hope inspiring for everybody listening. How can people talk with you more?
Yep. I think LinkedIn is probably the best place to find me. I'm reasonably active there, and I like to connect with folks, to the full extent that my time allows. And I'll just say, Geno, like this podcast is such a valuable resource for anybody in advertising, frankly, but certainly for people coming in. And to the question of energy around the office, I think you certainly lead from your seat in that as well.
Thank you.
It's always great to be working with you and with your team. So I think it's part of what makes the Chicago Village such a great place.
Thank you so much, Dave. Well, I hope everybody reaches out. That's all we got. Great job.
Thank you, Geno.